Hello, my name is Tamás Krisztin. I'm the scientific coordinator of the LAMASUS project, which is the sister project to BrightSpace. 2 months ago, when the LAMASUS kickoff was had, it started on 1st of September. We were discussing of how the BrightSpace and LAMASUS could coordinate and what would be the joint avenues where the projects could interact with each other. LAMASUS is a bit shorter. It has only 4 years, while BrightSpace goes for 1 year longer. But still, lots of the partners are similar. So we have IIASA, who is coordinating the LAMASUS. But beside that, we also have Wageningen Economic Research, Eurocare as part of the LAMASUS consortium, Thünen, University of Bonn, PBL, who are very much the same modeling teams as well as within the LAMASUS, and indeed sometimes even the same people. So it really makes sense to share our results and share our interim results, to coordinate on what we will output, and to coordinate on certain key issues. So during the kickoff meeting, already multiple parts were discussed. LAMASUS focuses on providing guidance and formulation and implementation towards Green Deal policies for the EU. And as opposed to BrightSpace, it very much focuses on land use and management guidance. So we very much focus on how different land uses and their associated management systems, what kind of trade-offs have for each other. Whereas BrightSpace focuses much more on the agricultural side. We are specifically looking how, for example, the Common Agricultural Policy and also other EU policies impacted these trade-offs between the land uses. So this is a very key part. And we are doing this in 4 pillars, which do have some similarities to the BrightSpace pillars. And the challenge will be to really align them also, that we don't do the same work twice, of course, but also that we have this unique opportunity, since both projects were selected, that we indeed can do more in-depth work or have a much larger coverage of some of the issues, and thus provide much better guidance to the European Union towards the end of the project. So these pillars are first the high-resolution land use and policy mapping, where we'll have a high-resolution land use database and a policy database. And we have also the second pillar, the understanding in LAMASUS, which provides the econometric modeling and the environmental impacts. And the third pillar, the tools, would be the LAMASUS modeling toolbox, where we have the forward-looking toolbox, which can be used then for policy evaluation along multiple dimensions. And all of this will be presented within stakeholder dialogues, who can always have their inputs on the project progress, and also in a framework and in a platform where our projections, databases, econometric insights can be explored by stakeholders and by the interested public as a whole. We have identified here multiple parts where the 2 projects can complement each other, and where they can really talk with each other and engage in dialogue. So first on stakeholders, on the data sets, on the empirical evidence, on model development, scenario analysis, and the IT infrastructure, last but not least. So in terms of stakeholders, in LAMASUS, we have climate change, and environmental and regional stakeholders. And in BrightSpace, there is the policy-oriented EU agri-trade environmental stakeholders. So there's very clear similarities. There will be multiple consultations and workshops with the stakeholders. So there, we can think about whether we want to have some together, or maybe just have some modelers from each of the teams present our results also to the stakeholders of the other consortium. We already talked about the capacity building, that this could be shared between the projects, which would also make sense because some of the models are really the same, and there will be similar developments taking place. On the data side, LAMASUS has the focus on the land use and on the specific policies, and the BrightSpace has the agriculture-oriented spatial data set and the distributional data on the just side. So on the land use side, we very clearly have to align because the products should be harmonized with each other. On the policies, we would also have certain overlaps. I have been quite in detail discussing how we can get maybe even similar data sets so that we can have a much better understanding of the policy impacts. On empirical evidence, in LAMASUS we would have the empirical evidence about the policy impacts of land use dynamics. Similarly, BrightSpace will have policy impacts, the cap, trade, environmental impacts on the agricultural sector and on the safe and just operating space. There we need to align to a certain degree, and we can also share the results. So I think that would also make sense to, once the results are done, I think in the timelines these align more or less. We could think about maybe coordinating our policy briefs and there having joint presentations. It could make sense. In terms of model development, particularly I'm talking now about the large-scale models which are present in both of the projects. It's clear that some of the thematic extensions of the projects are in, for example, organic farming is promised in both projects. So we need to think about how we align that. Then in scenario analysis, quite clearly the same thing. There also we started after the LAMASUS kickoff meeting to very explicitly align with BrightSpace because the baseline will have to be developed and it does not make sense to develop two different baselines for the very same models. So the baseline update needs to happen. In BrightSpace, this was scheduled much earlier. We have moved this also in the LAMASUS timeline. So this will start now quite early. And this will go hand in hand with the BrightSpace baseline development and focus on similar things. So this is very clear. On the scenarios, on the forward-looking scenarios, we will have to see how we complement each other. Probably it would make sense that we have different scenarios that we play through, but still we should look towards complementarities of that we have a much broader coverage of what kind of policy advice we are giving, because that's a huge opportunity that we have there. In terms of IT infrastructure, we would in both cases need to host our databases. We would have a scenario explorer. We would have what we call in LAMASUS portal land policy dashboard and the scenario validator. There are similar developments planned also for BrightSpace. In fact, the portal part and some of the data architecture, in both cases, IIASA is doing. So we are doing it essentially, and it will be very clearly the same product. So under a different label, of course, for the different projects, but it would make also sense then we could host it together, have one joint solution, and this is very clearly where we need to align. So there also already in LAMASUS the work has started, where we try to assess the requirements, and we will have within the 4 years, we really want to do the product which satisfies both these projects and some of the others that we have, and which can be used for both of them.